Hi there, guys. Welcome back to CFL Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans. And we got our Week 8 review with all 4 games of this week. So it was a pretty decent week, a little bit of an interesting week. Some stuff happening that was a bit expected, some stuff that wasn't. But yeah. But first, before we get into that, we got to talk about today's sponsor, which is BetStamp. Now, BetStamp is not a traditional sports betting website. It does not offer you one money line. It will actually offer you many money lines from a variety of sources and other betting websites. So that way you can make the most for every bet you make. So make sure when you download it from the App Store, or if you use the link in the description below to the website, you will use code CFL Central, so that way they know that you're coming from us and you're saving money. So that way you can make the most out of your bets and get the biggest possible payout instead of whatever just your app will offer you. So thanks again to BetStamp for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into it. So our first game of the week was the Montreal Alouettes versus the Hamilton Tiger-Cats. The Tiger-Cats will win this game 24-17, as the Tiger-Cats are kind of looking to rebuild their reputation in the East a little bit. Montreal out of the gates was a bit stronger of the teams in the East. Now I say stronger still with the East being as weak as they are. However, it wasn't necessarily that they were exceptional. It's that they didn't just fall apart immediately like a lot of the teams in the East did. And overall, this game was extremely inconsistent, to be honest, with the Alouettes scoring points at just the beginning and end of the game. And what I mean by points, I mean they got a field goal in the first quarter and then they got a field goal in the first and second quarter, nothing in the third, and then a little bit of a last hurrah near the end. However, it didn't make up that really strong second and third quarter for the Ticats, where they put up the points that they would win this game with, despite getting nothing in the first and fourth. This is a bit of a strange game. Now, this is kind of what Hamilton needs, especially, being at home. You want to win at home. But overall, Hamilton now 2-5, second in the East. It's kind of crazy to think that someone 2-5 is second in the East, but nevertheless they are, as they're going to look to hopefully, eventually for them at least, overthrow the Argonauts. So that'll bring us into our next game, though, which is the BC Lions versus Saskatchewan Roughriders. Now, I was not sure what to expect with this game. So Saskatchewan was plagued with injuries before this game, the game prior, and that was one of the main reasons why they lost to the Argonauts. It was absolutely not the only reason, though. The rest of the team didn't show up the way they needed to. And I thought that maybe Saskatchewan would bounce back for that with some of their guys coming back, like Cody Fajardo back in the lineup and a few others. However, they didn't, The Lions really just kept going, and I guess it doesn't surprise me that much. I just, wanted to be a little risky taking Saskatchewan, but BC shut them up, BC, they had... despite a really kind of a weak first quarter, every other quarter they had, they were dominant. They shut out the Riders the entire second half of this game. Nathan Rourke is, he at this point he deserves to be this year's MOP, and I think he can absolutely do that. You got guys like James Butler who are doing quite a lot more than some would have expected. He's not bad by any means, but he is leading the charge a bit more than I would have expected of him. And then in terms of their receivers, some of those other receivers like Keon Hatcher, and a few others have really started to kind of shine a bit more than expected. Not that they're truly exceptional. However, it's one of those things where I think seeing some of the stars really perform as stars. Nathan O'Rourke, I wasn't sure how well he was going to do. Nathan Rourke, sorry. I wasn't sure how well he was going to do at the start of the season. But seeing those guys really come over and really blow out those expectations, I think it's really motivated some other guys on the team to perform the way they need to. And you know what? That's one thing that has made the BC Lions as successful as they have been this season, despite a lot of people not even putting them in the top 3 in the West. However, they have proven that they are that second place team. Going into our next game, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The odds have never been further in against the Bombers, and now it was still in their favor as the back-to-back defending Grey Cup champions who are undefeated 7-0 going into this game, now 8-0 coming out of it over the Calgary Stampeders. But a game in Calgary, Calgary looking for a bounce-back game, and so a decent amount of people had the Stampeders, not necessarily because they thought that the Stampeders were the better team, but, if the Bombers had to get their first loss, this was the time for it to happen. But it didn't. The Bombers have shown time and time again, especially with that game against the Lions and now going into this even, that, they didn't have a lot of perseverance that they needed until then. And so the question is that a lot of people thought that they would just crumble once they got it because, not having constant perseverance to have to get through can sometimes drain a lot of teams, and teams will kind of fall apart at that point. However, the Bombers have risen up to the occasion every single time. And as a Bomber fan, I'm really not trying to toot my own horn here, but this is the most dominant performance by a CFL team I've seen in my entire lifetime. Right now, the Bombers are 8-0. The best Bomber team we've seen since the 60s in terms of regular season undefeated streak performance. And yeah, they just really railed it up here against Calgary, outscoring Calgary in every single quarter with the exception of the third, where they still put up a touchdown. So Zach Collaros has really nailed in his game. Brady Oliveira has a solid game here. Dalton Schoen continues the magic that he has been. Nick Dembski has probably his best game as a Bomber this season. So the best of his games this season. And Calgary, Calgary, this is not a game of Calgary playing really bad. This is a game of just Calgary just being outmatched. Both teams brought their A game, and the Bombers' A game was stronger. So, props to Calgary for putting up 28 points against the stellar defense that is the Bombers, even with the Bombers having some injuries. Reminders that Agadosi was out, that Greg Ellingson was out, Jackson Jeffcoat was out. That's a big piece of that defensive line, and yet, you know what? The Bombers still got it done. So, Bombers improved to 8-0, and that brings us into our last game with the Ottawa Redblacks getting their first win of the season over the Toronto Argonauts. So the last place team in the East getting their victory against the first place team in the East. This has got to feel good for Red Black fans. Finally getting themselves a win. And you know what? This was long overdue. The Red Blacks were long overdue for a victory. And you know what? They outplayed the Argonauts in every quarter with the exception of the second where, like the Bombers, they still put up a touchdown. Caleb Evans has a solid game. Bethel Thompson just kind of plays in that mediocrity, which, a lot of us kind of expected that. He really tanked in a few of these games, having some really bad games. However, this is a situation where the Red Blacks really shut out the Argonauts, especially in that third and fourth quarter. That second half of football, Toronto got no points on the board. You will never win a football game if you cannot for 2 consecutive quarters get something done, especially when it comes to crunch time going into the end of the game. The CFL, with the rules they have, it's built so that way there is no lead that is safe. And you know what? The Argonauts just simply didn't do what needed to be done to come back into that game. Jalen Acklin would be the star receiver for the Red Blacks with an average of 20.6 yards on each carry. So solid yardage there with 144 on the night. And yeah, this is just a game of finally the Red Blacks coming together to get at least one victory. And, who knows? Maybe they'll pull this into a streak. They got an interesting game coming up this next week over against the Stampeders in Ottawa. But who knows? Maybe they're able. The odds are really not in their favor. However, if you guys see our predictions, I think you guys are going to find it really interesting. So make sure to watch that video when it drops. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys thought of this week's games. Make sure to check out our Week 9 previews coming out soon. And Jake's going to be back for that one, finally. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And make sure you guys take care. Bye-bye.